In a far corner of the galaxy, on a planet where the sun bathed the land in a warm violet glow, an alien girl stood in awe of something she had never seen before. Her eyes, large and filled with curiosity, reflected the strange new world around her. For her species, exploration was a way of life, but encountering new beings was a rare and dangerous privilege, one that only the bravest ventured into. She had heard stories of humans, whispered rumors about the strange creatures that lived on a world called Earth. Yet, nothing had prepared her for the intensity of the moment she now faced. As she approached the human, there was a mixture of awe and something else, something that made her pulse race. She had been told that humans were unlike anything she had encountered before, but the stories hadn't captured the complexity of their emotions, their thoughts, or their sheer unpredictability. She was about to learn something she hadn't even considered, the concept of desire and how it differed between species. With a single, hesitant question, she would find herself standing at the threshold of an entirely new understanding. "What do you mean by saying that you'll be inside me?" The words tumbled out of her mouth before she could stop them, her confusion raw and visible in her expression. Her question hung in the air, charged with unspoken tension. The human's reaction was one of shock, then amusement, as though the answer to her question was something she should already know, but couldn't quite grasp. The alien girl had never experienced anything like this before. In her world, relationships were different. There were no human-like bonds of attraction or desire. Her species communicated through shared consciousness and emotion. Their connection was pure, devoid of the confusion and ambiguity that often marked human interactions. The concept of physical closeness, of being inside another being, was foreign to her. Yet, the human had spoken those words so naturally, as if they were the simplest, most obvious thing in the universe. The air was thick with a kind of tension that the alien girl had never encountered. She could feel the shift in the atmosphere, the weight of something profound pressing against her chest. Her instincts told her that this moment was significant, that it held the key to something greater, something that might change her understanding of the universe and herself. The human, seemingly unfazed, met her gaze. "It's complicated," they said, their voice gentle but tinged with a curiosity of their own. They could tell she was struggling to process the idea, and for the first time, they felt the need to explain, not just for their own sake, but for hers. Humans were known for their unpredictability, for their emotional complexity. It was this very complexity that made them both fascinating and dangerous to the rest of the galaxy. But what was it about humans that had intrigued the alien girl so much? What did she sense in them that made her ask such an intimate question? It wasn't just the physical appearance of the human, though they were unlike any species she had encountered before. It was their energy, their drive, their relentless pursuit of connection that intrigued her. And so, with each passing moment, the alien girl found herself caught between the unknown and the desire to understand. She wanted to know more, to unravel the mystery of what it meant to be human, to feel human. But at the same time, she couldn't help but feel the weight of the boundaries that separated them. Was it possible to truly connect with a species so different from her own? Could she ever truly understand the human experience? Or would she always remain an outsider, watching from the sidelines? As the tension between them grew, it was clear that this was not just a question about the physical. It was about something deeper, something that could shift the very foundation of the universe, the way species viewed each other, and perhaps even how they viewed themselves. The alien girl's question, so simple yet so loaded, had opened the door to a new reality, one that would force both her and the human to confront the very nature of intimacy, connection, and desire. But that question, so raw and innocent, had not been answered yet. And as the alien girl waited for a response, she couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would lead them somewhere they never expected. Would the human reveal the truth behind their words, or would they dance around the subject, leaving her to wrestle with the complexity of her own feelings? The universe had a way of making things complicated, and this moment was no exception. Both of them stood at the edge of something larger, a connection that could change everything they thought they knew about each other. But for now, the only thing that remained was silence, and the anticipation of the answer that hung in the air. And as the silence stretched between them, this was more than just a question. It was the beginning of something profound, something that would transcend the boundaries of their species and cultures. What did it mean to truly connect with another being? And was she ready to find out? The answer, she realized, was not just about the human. It was about her own willingness to embrace the unknown, to let go of her fears and explore a new world, one where the lines between species were blurred, and the only thing that mattered was understanding. In that moment, the alien girl understood that this wasn't just about physicality, about what the human meant by inside me. It was about something deeper. It was about the connection they shared, the unspoken bond that had been formed between them in the midst of all their differences. And as she waited for the answer, she realized that her question had already set something in motion, something that would change them both forever. The human paused, their lips parting as if to speak, but then they hesitated, their eyes narrowing in thought. It wasn't just the question that had caught them off guard. It was the alien girl herself. Her large, silver eyes, filled with curiosity and confusion, conveyed an innocence and an unfamiliarity with the complexities of human interactions that intrigued them more than they cared to admit. They had met other alien species before, each one different in its own way. Some had been hostile, others simply indifferent, but none had ever caused them to pause in the way this girl did. There was a purity to her, something untainted by the chaos and strife that often accompanied intergalactic encounters. And yet, there was something so undeniably human about the way she seemed to seek connection. It wasn't unlike the hunger for understanding that humans themselves so often felt. The idea of two species coming together, of bridging the immense gap that separated them, had always been a tantalizing thought. But this was something deeper. Her question had been simple, innocent even, but it had shaken the human in ways they hadn't anticipated. What did they mean by inside? The humans suddenly found themselves unable to answer. What had been a casual phrase in their mind had been interpreted as something completely different by the alien girl. For her, it was a concept so foreign that she couldn't even begin to wrap her mind around it. She wasn't just asking about the physical. She was asking about the very essence of the phrase, about the meaning it held in the context of their existence. Her confusion wasn't a flaw. It was a window into the vast differences between their species, a reminder of how far apart they truly were. The human took a slow breath, trying to organize their thoughts. There was something almost poetic in the way she had approached the question, her innocence making the situation feel both surreal and fragile. They couldn't just give a simple answer. How could they? They weren't sure if they even fully understood what they had meant in the first place. Humans had a way of using words, of attaching meaning to them, without fully realizing the weight they carried. The alien girl's eyes watched the human with an intensity that made them shift uncomfortably. She wasn't judging, not yet. She was waiting for clarity, for something that would help her make sense of this strange interaction. Her species communicated through shared consciousness, an experience that bypassed words. There was no ambiguity in their communication. Every thought, every feeling was perfectly understood. But humans? They had words, so many words, and yet they always seemed to leave so much unsaid. "Do you not understand?" the alien girl asked, her voice soft but earnest. "Or are you lying?" The question hit the human harder than they expected. Lying? No, they weren't lying. But how could they explain the intricacies of their thoughts, their feelings, their desires to someone who had never experienced anything like it? How could they explain the concept of intimacy, of attraction, when the very foundation of their existence was so radically different from hers? The humans stared at the girl, a strange mix of frustration and admiration bubbling up within them. It wasn't that they didn't want to explain, it was just complicated. "I'm not lying," they finally replied, their voice low. It's not something that's easy to explain. It's part of being human." The alien girl frowned, trying to make sense of their words. "But why? Why do you need to be inside someone? What does that mean to you?" Her question was direct, yet the confusion in her voice made it clear that she wasn't just asking for an explanation. She was searching for an understanding that went beyond the physical. She was looking for the meaning behind the words, the heart of the matter. The human took a deep breath, realizing that they would have to dig deeper into their own psyche to find an answer. How could they explain the complexity of human emotion, the physicality of attraction, and the vulnerability that came with it? They had always assumed these were things everyone understood. But now, faced with this alien girl's honest and raw inquiry, they realized just how much they had taken for granted. They spoke slowly, choosing their words carefully. "It's not just about being inside someone or touching them. It's about connection, about feeling something with another person, something deeper than just the surface. It's like a bond, something you share with someone you care about. It's not just about the physical act. It's about the trust, the understanding, the desire to be close to them, to share something that no one else can understand." The alien girl listened intently, her silver eyes scanning the human's face as if trying to decipher every nuance of emotion that crossed it. She was silent for a long moment, her mind processing the concept. A bond, trust, understanding. These were foreign ideas to her, ideas that didn't exist in the way her species had been taught to think. She had never needed to form bonds. Her people communicated directly, mind to mind. There was no need for trust or misunderstanding. Everything was laid bare in the consciousness they shared. But now, in front of the human, she could sense that there was something more to these words than she had imagined. I think I understand," she said finally, her voice softer now, almost hesitant. "But it still feels strange." The human nodded. "I get it. It's strange for me too, sometimes. But it's what makes us human." They stood there, the space between them filled with something unspoken, something that neither of them fully understood yet. It was as if both of them were standing at the edge of a cliff, peering into an abyss that neither could fully comprehend. The alien girl had asked a question that had shaken the human, and in return, the human had offered an answer that was far from complete. There was still so many layers, so much left unsaid. And yet, despite the uncertainty, the confusion, and the tension, there was something beautiful in that shared space. Something raw and genuine, as though the boundaries between their two worlds had momentarily faded away. I don't know if I can explain it better, the human continued, their voice growing quieter. But what I do know is that this, whatever this is, it's something you can only understand if you experience it yourself. And maybe that's where you'll find the answers. The alien girl's eyes flickered with something like understanding. She was still uncertain, still trying to piece together the meaning of it all. But she wasn't ready to walk away. Not yet. There was something in the human's words that resonated with her, something that felt like the beginning of a discovery, one that would lead her to a deeper understanding of herself, of the human experience, and maybe even the very nature of connection itself. She took a step forward, closing the distance between them. Maybe I need to see it for myself. The human looked at her, their expression unreadable. Whatever lay ahead, neither of them knew exactly where this path would lead. But one thing was certain: this was only the beginning of a journey neither of them had ever anticipated. As the two of them stood together, the weight of their differences was undeniable, but so too was the pull of something shared, something that transcended the boundaries of their species. The question had been asked, the foundations of understanding had been laid, and now they would have to navigate the complexities of their connection, one step at a time. The silence between them stretched, and with it, a sense of anticipation that neither of them could ignore. The alien girl's eyes remained fixed on the human, their expression a blend of curiosity and something deeper, an unspoken hunger to understand, to experience what had been so foreign to her. The human, for their part, felt the weight of the moment. They had offered an explanation, tried to make sense of a concept that had never quite existed in her world. But now, as she took another step forward, there was something in her that seemed determined to bridge the gap, to tear down the walls that kept them apart. It was as though time itself had slowed, leaving them both suspended in a moment that would forever change the course of their interaction. The human couldn't quite place the feeling creeping up inside them, a mixture of dread and excitement. It wasn't just about the question anymore. It was about the very nature of their encounter, of the strange alien presence that had ignited something in them. Something human. Something they had taken for granted, but now, standing before the alien girl, felt like a wild, untamed force. I need to understand, the alien girl said again, her voice a little softer, but her intent no less clear. I need to know what it is that makes you human. The human could see it in her eyes, now, the spark of determination, the same drive they had seen in countless human faces before. It was a hunger, yes, but it was more than that. It was the need to connect, to reach beyond the surface and understand something far deeper. She didn't just want to know what it meant to be human. She wanted to feel it. She wanted to experience the emotions that seemed to guide every word, every action that propelled them forward in ways she had never encountered in her own world. For a moment, the human faltered. What could they say that would help her? What could they offer to satisfy her curiosity and their own fears that wouldn't just complicate everything further? It was a question they had never asked themselves before, but standing here, with the alien girl so close, it seemed like the only one that mattered. And so, without thinking, they spoke, their voice a little shaky but determined. You don't know what you're asking. It's not as simple as you think. Human emotions. They're complex, messy. They're powerful, but they can also destroy you. They're what make us who we are, but they're also what separate us from everything else. The alien girl tilted her head, absorbing the words, but the uncertainty didn't leave her face. She wasn't backing away. Instead, she was leaning in, wanting more, wanting to push deeper into the unknown. There was no fear in her eyes, only a thirst for something new. Something raw. "Then show me," she said. "Show me how it feels." The human's heart raced. They wanted to push back, to tell her it wasn't that simple, to explain that showing wasn't always enough to feel. But they couldn't. There was something in her plea that caught them off guard. It was a plea not just for knowledge, but for shared experience. The weight of their difference in species had never felt more apparent than in that moment. Could they even attempt to show her what being human truly meant, when their own understanding of it was still so incomplete? But still, they couldn't turn away. Not now. Not when the alien girl had placed her trust in them. Not when they had been so desperate for connection themselves. The human's fingers twitched at their side, the tension thick in the air. The silence grew oppressive. It was as if everything in the universe was holding its breath, waiting to see what they would do next. "I'm not sure how to show you," the human murmured, more to themselves than to her. "But I'll try. I'll try to make you understand." The alien girl reached out, her hand hovering just a fraction of an inch from the human's skin, as if testing the waters. Her touch was hesitant at first, but as the human didn't pull away, she closed the distance. The moment her fingers made contact, there was a spark of electricity, a connection that neither of them had expected. The human's breath caught in their throat as a strange, almost overwhelming wave of emotion rushed through them. It was as though the touch itself had opened a door to something hidden deep within. The alien girl's eyes widened, sensing the shift in the human's body language. She hadn't felt anything like it before, this flood of sensation, this jolt of something so real, so raw. It was almost too much for her to process, and yet it was exactly what she had been seeking. A new kind of knowledge, a new understanding. The human pulled back slightly, just enough to gather their thoughts. Their chest was tight, their heart pounding in their ears. They had shown her something, yes, but what exactly? Was it enough to answer the questions she had been asking? Could anything ever be enough? The alien girl, however, was silent, her fingers still lingering in the air between them. It was as if she were weighing something heavy, something important. She had been searching for the essence of humanity, but now, with this connection, it seemed like she had found something far more complicated than she had ever expected. "What? What was that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible, her wide eyes searching the human's face for answers. The human swallowed hard, struggling to keep their composure. That's the feeling we have when we connect with someone, when we really let them in. It's not just physical, it's emotional. It's how we feel each other's presence. It's trust, and sometimes it's fear, and it's all tangled together. The alien girl looked at them for a long moment, then slowly, as if testing the weight of their words, she nodded. It wasn't full understanding, not yet, but there was something in her gaze now that hadn't been there before. It was the beginnings of comprehension, of feeling what the human had tried to explain. But there was still so much more to uncover. As they stood there, suspended between the two of them, neither could deny the tension hanging in the air, thick with the potential for something greater. Neither of them knew how this encounter would ultimately unfold, but both of them were aware that this moment, this fleeting connection, had set in motion something far larger than either could have anticipated. There was no turning back now, just as the silence between them began to feel like it could hold the weight of everything they had shared. A new sensation rippled through the air. It was faint at first, almost imperceptible, like a hum, a vibration in the space between their bodies. The alien girl's expression shifted, her eyes narrowing as she sensed the shift. Something was wrong, something unexpected. The human, still reeling from their own emotions, didn't notice immediately. But then the ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble. The air grew thicker, heavier, as though something was pressing down on them. The alien girl's hand trembled slightly as it hovered in midair, and the human's heartbeat quickened. The sense of connection, of understanding, that had just begun to bloom between them now felt unstable, fragile. Without warning, the tremor grew stronger. A low, ominous rumble echoed from deep within the structure surrounding them, vibrating through the walls, through the very air they breathed. The alien girl took a step back, her eyes wide with confusion and alarm. What is that? What's happening? The human didn't know. They didn't have an answer. All they could feel was the pressure building, like the world around them was tightening its grip. Something was coming. Something had been triggered. It was as if their brief moment of connection had stirred something far beyond either of their understanding. Then, in the distance, they heard it, a faint, eerie whine, rising in pitch until it nearly drowned out everything else. The sound was mechanical, unnatural, and it felt like it was coming from deep beneath the surface. The alien girl's eyes flickered with recognition, and her hand moved instinctively to the side, as though to shield herself from an unseen threat. "It's the signal," she said quietly. "It's calling us back." The human froze. "Calling us back? What do you mean?" The alien girl turned to face the human, her expression intense. "I've been here before. My kind. We were not meant to stay. We were only here to observe, to understand. But that connection, it's too much. It's reacting to us, to you." Her voice trembled with urgency. "Something is waking up, and it won't stop until we've completed what we came here to do." The human's mind raced, their pulse now hammering in their ears. The tension that had been building in the air had escalated into something more, something far more dangerous. They had no idea what the alien girl meant by completed, but the words sent a chill down their spine. It was as if their brief exchange had unwittingly opened a door, one that was now pulling them both into a deeper, darker conflict. The walls around them groaned in protest, the vibration intensifying as the strange whine turned into a cacophony of mechanical screeches. Something was moving beneath them, something ancient, and it was waking up. The ground beneath their feet shifted, and the alien girl took a step back, her eyes scanning the darkened corridor. The human had a sinking feeling in their stomach. They had only just begun to understand the complexities of this alien, and now they were faced with the terrifying reality that their presence, their connection had triggered something far beyond their control. They reached for the alien girl, grabbing her arm in a desperate attempt to steady themselves. "What's happening? What's going to happen?" the human asked, their voice tinged with panic. The alien girl pulled her arm free, her gaze shifting from the human to the dark hallway that now seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. "You shouldn't have come here," she whispered. "You shouldn't have connected with me." Her words hit the human like a slap in the face. They hadn't understood then, but now the weight of the alien's statement settled like a heavy stone in their chest. They had connected, yes, but what did that mean for them both? What had they unlocked by breaking the boundaries of their species and sharing something so primal? It was a question that had no clear answer, and yet, in this moment, it felt like the only question that. The ground rumbled again, more violently this time, and a blinding light erupted from deep within the structure. It was so bright that it cut through the darkness like a blade, blinding them both. The human shielded their eyes, and the alien girl, though equally struck by the brilliance, didn't flinch. Instead, her expression darkened, a look of dread crossing her face. "We have to go," she urged, grabbing the human's arm and pulling them away. Now. But the human could feel the pull of something else, the force of the strange signal, calling them, pushing them further into the unknown. They resisted, torn between the alien's desperate plea and the strange magnetism drawing them forward. The energy in the air felt like it was suffocating them, tightening around their lungs, making every breath harder to take. "No," the human said, their voice trembling with the fear of what they were about to discover. "I need to know. What did I do? What is it that you're not telling me?" The alien girl's eyes flickered with hesitation before she answered. "It's not what you think. This place. This is not a place for us. It was never meant for us. We were supposed to leave, to never interfere. But now it's too late." Suddenly, the walls began to shake, violently this time, as though something massive was coming to life deep below the surface. The hum that had started as a faint vibration was now a deafening roar, and in that moment, the human realized just how dangerous their connection had become. They had unlocked something that was never meant to be disturbed. With a force that seemed to come from nowhere, the alien girl shoved the human toward the exit, her face a mask of determination. "Go," she commanded. "Run. You've unleashed something, and it's not just us that it wants. It wants everything." The human's eyes widened in realization, their breath quickening. They had triggered something far beyond what they had intended, and now they were both caught in a battle for survival. The very air around them seemed to crackle with energy, the force of whatever they had awakened building toward a terrifying climax. And with that, the true nature of their connection, of what it meant to be human, and the power that came with it, had become clearer than ever before. But it was too late to turn back now. The alien girl's eyes were filled with fear, but her hand remained firm on the human's arm. The structure around them was collapsing in on itself, the tremors shaking the ground beneath their feet as if it were trying to expel them. The light that had erupted from the depths of the structure flickered and pulsed, growing more intense with each passing second. It wasn't just light, it was a force, an energy that seemed to reach out, wanting to engulf everything in its path. "We need to move, now," the alien girl urged again, her voice trembling. But the humans stood frozen, staring at the growing light, a mixture of dread and curiosity in their eyes. They had been part of something far bigger than they could have ever imagined, and now the consequences of their actions were unfolding before them. The connection, the bond they had shared, was not just a simple exchange of ideas or feelings. It was a link to something ancient, something powerful. And now it was demanding a reckoning. The air around them grew dense with energy, almost suffocating, as if the very atmosphere was alive with intent. The human's heart pounded in their chest, and yet they couldn't move. There was something irresistible about the light, something that called to them. It was as though they were being drawn into its core, into the very heart of whatever had been awakened. "What is it?" the human whispered, barely able to hear their own voice over the roar of the shifting structure. "What is this thing that we've awakened?" The alien girl's face twisted in a mixture of fear and regret. "You don't understand," she said, her voice low and urgent. "This is not just a place. It is a force. And you've given it a reason to return. We thought it was dormant, but we were wrong." The light flared, brighter now, and the very air around them hummed with an overwhelming power. The ground cracked open, and the force beneath them seemed to surge upward, pulling at them with magnetic intensity. The alien girl tried to pull the human away, but the ground shifted violently, and she was forced to hold on tightly to the human to prevent being thrown off. The human felt their feet lift from the ground as the pull grew stronger, like the whole structure was collapsing inward, pulling everything into its core. "What do we do?" the human shouted, panic creeping into their voice. "Tell me what to do." For the first time, the alien girl seemed uncertain. "There is nothing we can do," she said. "We have unleashed something that cannot be contained. It is beyond anything we understood. We only thought we knew its power, but now it is beyond control." The words hit the human like a punch to the gut. There was no escape, no fix. Everything they had done, every choice they had made, had led them here to this moment. The light flared one last time, and the walls of the structure seemed to buckle under the pressure. The alien girl's face contorted with agony, and for the briefest moment, the human saw a flicker of something guilt, sorrow, and resignation. And then, with a deafening crash, the structure collapsed inward and the world around them shattered into darkness. But it wasn't the end. As the darkness enveloped them, the human felt a strange sense of weightlessness. The pull of the energy had subsided, but something else had taken its place. A quiet hum filled the air, gentle and steady. The human tried to open their eyes, but they couldn't. It was as though they were being held in a different plane altogether. The sound of their breath, the beating of their heart, was the only thing they could hear. The alien girl's presence was still beside them, but it felt different. Then, out of the silence, came a voice. It was faint at first, but it grew louder, more distinct. "You have made the choice," the voice said, reverberating through the space. "You have crossed the threshold. Now you must understand." The human's heart skipped a beat. The voice was not the alien girl's. It was deeper, older. It was as though it had existed long before they had even arrived. "What is this?" the human asked, their voice trembling in the stillness. "Where are we?" "We are where you belong," the voice replied. "This place, this energy, it has always been within you. You are the ones who unlocked it. Your kind. Your human connection is what gave it life. It is no coincidence that you are here." The human's mind reeled. This was something they hadn't expected. They had thought they were unlocking the mysteries of another species, exploring the boundaries of the universe. But now they were faced with the unimaginable truth. They were the key to something much larger, much more ancient than they could have ever conceived. The alien girl was silent beside them, but her presence was now more like a shadow, her form fading as the voice grew louder, more commanding. The air thickened, and the weight of its words seemed to press down on the human's chest. "Your connection to the energy of this place is irreversible," the voice continued. "You are no longer just human. You are a part of something older, a force that will now spread across the stars. You and the one beside you are now the vessels of this power." The human's mind screamed. What had they done? How could they have known the consequences of their actions? The alien girl had warned them, but they hadn't fully understood the gravity of it. The connection, the strange pull they had felt it, had been the awakening of something that was never meant to stir. And now, there was no turning back. The hum in the air intensified, and the human felt themselves pulled deeper into the energy, into the force they had unlocked. The light surrounding them shifted, turning from blinding white to an eerie, pulsating glow. The alien girl's form was now almost completely invisible, lost in the growing wave of energy. And yet, the human could still feel her presence beside them, tethered to the same fate. "You are both chosen," the voice said, its tone both soothing and terrifying. "The fate of your worlds, your species, lies in your hands now. But remember this, there are those who will try to stop you. They will fight to keep the power from spreading. But you must push forward. Only through the union of your two kinds will the full potential of this energy be realized." The human's chest tightened. The weight of the decision, the responsibility, was too much. Their mind was racing, but there was no escape. They had crossed a line, and now they were part of something far larger than themselves. The alien girl, the power of the energy, the fate of entire worlds, it was all connected now. And as the voice faded into the air, leaving nothing but the hum of energy and the quiet tension, the human realized one undeniable truth. This was just the beginning. For a long moment, no one moved. The air felt heavy, as though the ship itself had grown aware of the tension filling its chambers. The crew exchanged uncertain glances, their minds racing with questions they dared not voice. What did she mean by saying the answers were within her? How could they possibly begin to unravel the mystery of someone or something so far beyond their understanding? The captain broke the silence. His voice was calm, but a faint tremor betrayed the weight of the moment. "If you have the answers, then show us," he said. "Help us understand." Ari, or whatever she truly was, closed her eyes, and for the first time, her expression seemed almost human, almost vulnerable. The faint glow of her skin dimmed slightly, and the hum of the ship's system softened as though she were drawing everything inward. "Connection requires trust," her voice echoed in their minds. "But trust comes with risk. Are you prepared for what you might see?" The captain hesitated. He didn't like uncertainty, and he certainly didn't like risks, but they were far past the point of retreating now. With a small nod, he said, "We're prepared." Ari stepped forward, her movements smooth and deliberate, and extended her hand toward the nearest console. Her fingertips hovered just above the surface, and then, without warning, a surge of energy coursed through the room. The lights dimmed again, and the hum of the ship grew louder, deeper, like the sound of a heartbeat. In an instant, the crew was overwhelmed by a flood of images, not on the screens, but directly in their minds. Planets, unlike anything they had ever imagined. Stars being born and collapsing in fiery explosions. Civilizations rising and falling in the blink of an eye. It was too much to take in, and several crew members staggered, clutching their heads as though trying to shield themselves from the torrent of information. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, it stopped. The room fell silent, the lights returning to their steady glow. Ari withdrew her hand and looked at them. Her eyes filled with an emotion they couldn't quite place. Was it sadness? Hope? "You see now," she said softly. "I am a fragment of what was lost, a remnant of a people who reached too far, too fast. We sought connection, and in doing so, we unraveled ourselves." The scientist was the first to speak, his voice trembling. "Your people, they're gone." Ari nodded slowly. "Their physical forms, yes, but their essence remains within me, within the ship, now. It is all that is left." The weight of her words sank in, and for a moment no one could speak. The idea of an entire civilization reduced to a single being, a single fragment, was almost too much to comprehend. The captain stepped forward, his face a mixture of resolve and compassion. "If you're the last of your kind, what is it you want from us? What do you need to survive?" Ari's gaze shifted to him, and for the first time, there was something unmistakably human in her expression, gratitude. "Survival is not enough," she said. "To exist without purpose is to wither. I seek more than survival. I seek renewal, but I cannot do it alone." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. The implications of her words were clear. She wanted their help to rebuild, to create something new from the remnants of what was lost. But what would that mean for them? For their mission? The scientist, who had been silent for a long moment, finally spoke. "How would we even begin to help you? We're explorers, not creators." Ari's faint smile returned. "Exploration is creation," she said simply. "Each step forward is the birth of something new. Together, we can take those steps. Together, we can build." Over the next several hours, Ari worked alongside the crew, guiding them as they integrated her knowledge into the ship's systems. She showed them how to harness the ship's energy in ways they had never imagined, how to map the stars with unparalleled precision, and how to create technologies that could sustain life in even the harshest conditions. But it wasn't just about the technology. Ari also shared fragments of her people's culture, their art, their music, their stories. Through her, the crew came to understand not just what had been lost, but why it mattered. As days turned into weeks, the ship became a beacon of hope, a place where human ingenuity and alien knowledge merged into something greater than the sum of its parts. The crew, once wary of Ari, now saw her as one of their own, a bridge between two worlds, two species, two futures. But not everything was easy. There were moments of doubt, moments when the weight of their responsibility threatened to overwhelm them. The captain, in particular, struggled with the knowledge that their mission had changed in ways he could never have anticipated. One night, as the ship drifted through the quiet void of space, he found himself alone on the observation deck, staring out at the endless stars. Ari appeared beside him, her movements as silent as the vacuum outside. "You're worried," she said, her voice soft. He nodded, not turning to look at her. "I didn't sign up for this," he admitted. "I'm supposed to protect my crew, keep them safe. But now I don't even know what we're doing anymore." Ari placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch light as a whisper. "Change is never easy," she said. "But without it, there is no growth, no future. You are not just protecting your crew. You are leading them towards something greater." He sighed, his shoulders relaxing slightly. "I hope you're right," he said. In the end, the crew's efforts paid off. Together, they created a device, a fusion of human and alien technology that could preserve Ari's essence and allow her to grow, to evolve. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a start. As they prepared to leave the sector, Ari stood in the center of the ship, her silver skin glowing brighter than ever. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "You have given me a gift I can never repay." The captain smiled. "You've given us just as much," he said. "Maybe more." And with that, they parted ways, the ship continuing its journey through the stars, while Ari ventured out into the universe, her future uncertain but filled with possibility. The crew would never forget her or the lessons she had taught them. In the vast, endless expanse of space, they had discovered something far more valuable than new worlds or new technologies. They had discovered the power of connection, of trust, of hope. And as they looked out at the stars, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.